Have you ever wished there was a way to shut down narcissistic manipulation without even saying a word? If you're constantly feeling drained, doubting yourself, or trapped in cycles of frustration, the usual advice about setting boundaries might actually be making things worse. Without the right tools, you risk staying caught in the narcissist web, repeating the same exhausting patterns. I've spent the last 20 years researching self-worth and narcissistic relationships. As a coach, author, and survivor myself, I teach simple systems to help empower you in any situation. In this video, you'll learn the biggest mistake people make with narcissists, why certain types of boundaries backfire, and a surprising way to rethink boundaries that will change how you approach them forever, giving you a powerful tactic to stop a narcissist without saying a word. The first mistake people make with narcissists: having boundaries that are jello. Vague, wobbly, and easily pushed around. When you have jello boundaries, there's an outline of who you are, but it's soft and undefined. A light push from anyone, a narcissist, a friend, even a stranger, can easily reshape or blur those lines. Your boundaries don't hold under pressure. Instead, you adapt and shapeshift to meet other people's needs. When you're living life from the point of view of jello, you're easily wounded. You lose your definitive outside lines and you're wobbly. There's no clear sense of who you are or what you need or what you will or will not put up with. When you're this adaptable, it's almost impossible to tell who's crossing your boundaries and who isn't. When you have jello boundaries, you can't tell the difference between someone trying to manipulate you or someone who genuinely needs a little help. From a jello perspective, it feels like everyone's a narcissist because you're constantly feeling poked, prodded, or intruded upon. Many of my clients come to me with wobbly boundaries. They're too agreeable, too kind, too eager to please. When they first start learning about narcissism, they often think everyone around them is a narcissist. But the truth is that their own boundaries are so flexible that they can't clearly see who others are because they have no defined lines of their own. For example, say you're a mom who notices a kitchen is a mess after your kids have just made snacks. Instead of asking them to help clean up, you take care of it yourself. Instead of holding them accountable, you absorb the problem. Or let's say that you have a friend who cancels plans last minute. Rather than communicating the inconvenience, you might just say, it's okay. Instead of having a clear line to respect your time, you allow someone to push into your boundary. Or maybe you're a husband who senses your wife pulling away, but you're afraid to ask why. Rather than having an honest conversation, you stay agreeable, hoping that distance will fix itself. The silence grows, and without clear boundaries or communication, the disconnection will deepen. In these scenarios, you can't tell who's trying to manipulate you or if there's simply a misunderstanding. When you're living with jello boundaries like these, a narcissist pays close attention. They see how easy it is to push your limits and will often start taking more of your time, energy, and emotional space. And because you're too accommodating to notice the difference, you might not see the narcissist, or even worse, you might misinterpret someone who has genuinely good intentions, thinking that they're trying to manipulate you. The second mistake people make with narcissists: having boundaries that are too hard and crunchy, brittle and inflexible, like Doritos. Dorito boundaries usually happen after someone's been hurt. When you're trying to recover from being wounded or manipulated, it's natural to want protection, to feel safe behind walls, and to keep others at a distance. When you've been burned before, saying no to everything or staying hyper-guarded feels like the best way to protect yourself. But while jello boundaries are too bendable, Dorito boundaries are often the opposite: crispy and inflexible. While jello boundaries are typically due to conflict avoidance, Dorito boundaries are usually due to a fear of vulnerability. Sometimes, after being jello for too long, people swing to the opposite extreme and become crispy, breakable Doritos. Unfortunately, this type of reaction is what people tend to think when they learn about boundaries. Being super rigid, saying no all the time, staying protected behind walls. Instead of being protected, they actually become more fragile. When you have Dorito boundaries, there's no room to bend or adjust. Even small requests from a friend, a partner, or even a stranger can feel like a threat, leading to a quick no or a retreat into hiding. This might look like avoiding the dating scene after a painful divorce or being wary of meeting new people. It could be something like you used to respond to texts right away, but now you're afraid to say the wrong thing, so your messages just go unanswered for days because you're worried that any response will open the doors to more abuse. Where you were once too available, now you're closed off, retreating whenever anyone comes close, just to keep from feeling vulnerable again. This hyperprotection is really a response to fear, the fear of being hurt, deceived, or controlled again. But with Dorito boundaries, you can't tell who's actually safe to let in and who's not. Just like saying yes to everyone blurred your ability to see who's harmful, saying no to everyone means you miss out on real connection. You keep everyone out without actually knowing if it might be worth letting someone in. When you've made your boundaries rigid, it's understandable. But these types of boundaries sort of protect you, but end up isolating you, and you miss out on genuine connections. What's worse is that narcissists can see through this type of boundary. They're not deterred at all. Instead, they see it as a challenge, knowing that with enough pressure, they will win. If you'd like a copy of the tools I share, sign up below and you'll get a new 3-minute empowerment plan every week. So if being too soft doesn't work and being too rigid doesn't work, is there any type of boundary that works against a narcissist? The answer is yes, but there's nuance here, so let's get into it. Instead of being wobbly like Jell-O or breakable like a Dorito, the answer is this. Kind of weird, yes, I know. I'm hoping that these metaphors will help simplify the concepts. A can of soup has a strong outer shell. It's solid, it has weight, it doesn't easily change when pushed. This means that no matter who comes along, whether it's a narcissist trying to push or someone else just trying to make a request, they won't be able to bend or break this boundary. When your boundaries are solid like this, a narcissist can't find any weak spots to exploit. Unlike Jell-O boundaries that give in too easily, or Dorito boundaries that are brittle and easily broken, the soup can boundary holds strong. A narcissist may test it, but when they see that they can't budge you, they quickly lose interest. There's nothing for them to latch onto because you're not bending, explaining, or defending yourself. What's powerful about a soup can boundary is that it helps you see people clearly. Someone who respects you will understand that you're strong but open and will treat your boundaries with care. Narcissists, however, will keep pushing to see if they can bust through that boundary. This helps you discern who's safe and who's not. The magic of this boundary style is that it's both solid and soft. Like a can of soup that holds its shape on the outside but is warm and comforting on the inside, you stay strong and grounded in who you are, but you're still able to be open and caring with those who have the right opener, people who treat you with respect. With boundaries like these, you get the best of both worlds. You're safe from manipulation, but you're also free to connect deeply with people who honor and respect your limits. This boundary style lets you be who you are without the fear of being taken advantage of or pushed around. To set a boundary that truly stops a narcissist, it's crucial to understand that words aren't the boundary. Narcissists don't respect words. They look for signs of weakness or inconsistency in behavior. The soup can method focuses on setting boundaries through actions which hold firm even under pressure and require no explaining, justifying, or apologizing. Here's a scenario to demonstrate. Your manager asks if you can stay late at work. You're not sure whether they're just making a request or testing your limits, but you really don't want to stay. A Jell-O response might sound something like, I guess I can stay. I had plans, but maybe I can change them. Here, you're bending to their request, showing that your plans are negotiable. This type of response gives a clear signal that you're manipulatable. It's great news to a narcissist because they now know that you're willing to put aside your needs, and they'll keep testing your flexibility, knowing that you're an easy source of supply for them. However, the Jell-O response doesn't give you any feedback about whether or not the manager is a narcissist. They might just be a nice person who wants your company, and you won't know the difference with this kind of squishy response. A Dorito response, on the other hand, looks like shutting down and bolting at the first sign of any request. Instead of setting a boundary, you feel fear and leave work early, dodging any interaction. This overly defensive approach is rigid and avoidant, and it's all about escaping. You haven't communicated what does or doesn't work for you, only that you're uncomfortable and unwilling to discuss it. To a narcissist, this response is a sign of weakness and fear. They can smell your lack of confidence, and they see that it's just a matter of time before they find a way to pin you down. If your manager is a reasonable person, this ghosting response will simply leave them confused, making future communication more strained. By avoiding the situation entirely, you don't get any feedback on their true intention, and you miss the chance to clearly define your limits. Now, here's how the soup can boundary works. Your manager asks if you can stay late, and you respond calmly, "No, I'm not available tonight." But here's the key. The real boundary isn't in the words, it's in your actions. If your manager tries to apply pressure, guilt, or manipulation, saying something like, "We really need you tonight," or "You'd really be letting our team down," you don't justify, apologize, or try to smooth things over. You follow through with your action. You gather your things, you leave at the usual time, showing that your decision is firm and consistent. You're solid, unshakable, and unaffected by any pressure to change your plans. A narcissist is going to try several angles. They'll guilt you, they'll flatter you, they'll criticize you to see if they can get you to budge. But when they see that nothing changes with your actions, they quickly lose interest. The soup can boundary shows them that your decision is real, not just words, and that nothing they say will alter it. In contrast, if they're not a narcissist, they'll recognize and respect your choice. They might feel disappointed, but they won't keep pushing. Instead, they'll respect that you simply are unavailable. By holding firm through action, you get clarity on their intentions without saying anything more than what's needed. The power of the soup can method is in understanding that your consistent actions create the boundary. So the next time someone asks you for more than you're willing to give, imagine being a solid, unshakable can of soup. There's no need to defend or explain. Your behavior sets a boundary that's unmovable, allowing others to reveal whether or not they respect it. With this approach, you stay steady, protected, and respected without having to say a word. This is your first line of defense, but now that you've learned how to stop them, you need to know what the narcissist is going to do once they know you're onto them. So click this video next to learn the 3 key things that a narcissist will do when they realize they can't manipulate you anymore. Real-life examples to help you recognize these behaviors and actionable tips to stay strong and empowered no matter what they try next.